story is nothing without its characters, whether it's movies, books, or video games. And especially when the premise is that your choices shape the outcome of your story, it's important to create characters that you actually care for and that you want to see make it out alive. Supermassive Games is all about leaving your character's fate in your hands. From Until Dawn to the Dark Pictures anthology, there have been many characters that you probably wouldn't have cared too much if they die, while there were others that you would have literally taken a bullet for to protect them. Let's take a look at the Quarry. Assembling the largest cast to date, the most recent release of the studio features the most convoluted possibilities to date. Not only the main characters and the counselors are savable, but also supporting characters like the Hackett family, even the main antagonist in Solace. This alone makes it that much more intriguing to take a closer look at each character to see which one is truly the best and who you want to see survive the most. But don't be fooled, this ranking isn't just depending on how likable they are. Characters can be flawed, unique, problematic, or simply badass. There are so many things that can make them great, and especially greater than others, even with less screen time. And now that I've spent quite some time with all of these characters over the past few months, it's time to finally rank them from worst to best. Enjoy. There's a reason why I said worst, because, you know, just because a character is at the bottom of a list doesn't necessarily mean they are bad, just not in a level of the others. For this ranking, I think it's clear why Kaitlyn Hackett takes the last place. She's an off-screen supportive character that fuels the story the same way every playthrough. You only see a picture of her, or otherwise her corpse in the pool, given the fact that she will always be killed the same way, no matter what, making her the only character whose fate is always identical. Is this a bad thing? No, she's like mentioned off-screen supportive character. What do we expect? She fuels the story, and that's enough. Kelly's brother, the most bloodthirsty werewolf of them all, spends all night as the secondary antagonist that can reach quite the kill count depending on your choices. While Caleb as a werewolf is a massive and terrifying threat, there's just not much else to his character. No dialogue, no reconnection outside of him being Chris's son. He's a big bad wolf that didn't want to sit in his cage that night and is now out to murder us. Nothing else. But is more even really needed? Same case as Kelly. Supportive character that is at least on screen. Solace is a very similar case to Caleb, a bloodthirsty werewolf that is out to kill us, with the only difference being that he has a bit more impact on the story as he is the main antagonist and top of the curse chain who the Hacketts have been hunting for 6 years, making him an important part of the game. Yet again, he's a very similar case to Caleb, as he also has no dialogue, nor do we see him in human form outside of the end credit. He's basically Caleb, just with more story importance and a more threatening look. He does his job as a monster antagonist, but there's not much else to add. Played by the amazing Lance Henriksen, Jedediah may appear already in Chapter 1, but it only has a few scenes sprinkled in within the rest of the game. While this "fuck this" line is one of the funniest moments in the Quarry, they just didn't give the character any other significant scenes and moments to make him memorable. I mean, holy shit, his name is never even said by any of the characters, at least of what I can remember. If it wasn't for the subtitles and end credits, we wouldn't even know his name. Come on. I love the actor and the smugness in his few scenes is very entertaining, but there simply isn't enough of Jedediah to warrant a higher ranking. Constance is one of those characters that are played by an amazing actress but just aren't given the screen time and weight within the story to truly steal the show, even though Constance did do that in one way or another, as her shotgun blast to the head remains one of the game's most iconic scenes. But that's basically it. Constance is introduced late in Chapter 7 and you only get a bit of dialogue in Chapter 8 and Chapter 9, while the amazing Lynn Shane makes those few minutes of screen time still memorable. The character itself just doesn't add anything significant to the game, other than a 10-10 death scene. You could remove it from the story and nothing would change. As a matter of fact, Travis literally works with you even if you blast his mother's face off. Even he doesn't care. Ultimately, the few scenes she has are really entertaining, but Constance just doesn't have enough screen time to reach a higher ranking on this list. Lowest ranked counselor on this list, and I don't think it should come to the surprise of anybody. We just talked about how Constance is given enough screen time to feel more important, and this applies to Nick as well. But it's especially difficult here because he's supposed to be a main character. Additionally, he also suffers from the same issue some of the previous side characters do. His story is always the same. No matter what you do, Nick will always be attacked, will always turn into a werewolf, and then basically disappear for the rest of the game, with you being able to kill him at one point, and if you don't, you make a Jacob, and that's it. Yes, the moment where Nick turns is one of the game's highlights, but it has nothing to do with Nick the character, it's just the scene in general. Outside of the always repeating path, Nick is just barely on screen. screen. His dialogues aren't anything memorable. His romance with Abigail, if you even want to call it, is less lovely than the one with Max and Laura, and way less interesting than the one with Emma and Jacob. Nick is a character that doesn't necessarily annoy me, but didn't entertain me that much either. He's blandly written because, well, his story will always be the same anyways. A supposed main character that ultimately turns out to be an afterthought whose only usage is to progress the story without really influencing it himself. And him kissing Emma didn't make him that much more likable either. Poor Nick. I can basically copy paste what I just said about Nick for Max, as he also suffers from the always empath and always turns into a werewolf problem. Seriously, Max is a sweet guy. His and Laura's scenes feel very genuine, and you can't help yourself but feel for them, given the dilemma they're facing. But man, Max just doesn't have a lot going on for himself, does he? The prologue is very repetitive without much character variety. Max will always just be the calm boyfriend driving the car. After that, we don't see him up until chapter 7, and while I personally enjoy that chapter for the story impact and the actually well done dialogue, it really drags on during replays and when watching others play the game, which really doesn't help the overall enjoyment for the character. I don't know, even here he is clearly the least important of the story in comparison to Laura and Travis, and while those werewolf scenes are cool, it just doesn't carry the lack of variety for his human scenes. And I mean, seriously, there's only one scene in which Max can be played throughout the game, and all you gotta do is walk a few meters before making one choice. Come on, Max is even more of a main character pushed into his side character to progress the story than Nick, and the only reason I have him above Nick is that his relationship with Laura, like mentioned, feels actually genuine and really makes you root for them. I don't dislike Max, but he's certainly an afterthought throughout the story, which is unfortunate because he's such a nice dude that you really want to see survive. We said it already, some characters take the big stage, some don't have much screen time and are there to support the story. But I think we all were kinda surprised that David Arquette's character was as absent from the main game as he was, only appearing in 2 chapters as a human. Chris, who's the Cambona, I might add, then felt even more underused than some of the other characters, simply because you would think it would get more involvement on screen. And while the bit of dialogue Chris got was really good, I mean it's David Arquette, what do we expect, Chris and his character actually still add a lot of weight and conflict to the story. In some way, Chris is responsible for all of this as he keeps the camp running despite the werewolf curse and are clearing things up when shit hit the fan. You can also judge him negatively when you realize he didn't do anything about Laura and Max getting locked up. On the other hand, he's just a father trying his best to keep the money coming in as he tries to fix his big family issues. He still tries his best to protect the counselors while also being an important father figure to Ryan, adding weight to his story as well. Chris doesn't have a lot of screen time, but his few human scenes are great. The mystery around him kept interesting the story. The reveal of him being a werewolf himself and how everything came to be makes for a great moment. And let's be honest, there's no more badass werewolf scene in the entire game than Chris triple killing his own damn family. A supporting character that I just can't help myself but really enjoy. I'm sorry, I really tried to like her, but Emma just hasn't grown on me. On the one hand, she's the counselor that would have been the least upset about dying, given she's a bit of an egoistic bitch. On the other hand, Emma makes for an intriguing character that adds such an important dynamic throughout the game. I'm honest, I can't really like her. I mean, kissing the crush of her best friend right in front of her, while the guy she knows is in love with her is also seeing it. I mean, even if it's just true for the air, why would you do it like that? That ain't just a quick pack, that's making out. And to then say he's good? Come on. Emma continued to show major signs of only caring about herself and playing with others and simply being the eye candy blonde, that it was difficult to connect with her. But the more time I spent with the game and see scenes that I missed out in my own playthrough due to, I don't know, her turning into a werewolf, I realized that Emma's entire relationship with Makos is one of the game's most infuriating yet most important story aspects. I gotta give her that. Plus, her having everyone to be upset with Jacob during their final conversation. Again, I don't necessarily hate Emma, but she's definitely the counselor I like the least. She's a young, confident woman that knows what she wants, but she's such a bitch for no reason while doing so. The reason why she's above Nick and Max is solely for the fact that her character can have actual impact on the story that isn't forced to be repeated. I enjoy that a lot. But other than that, I'm sorry Emma, be nicer next time. Now I know that there will be a lot of people that think this ranking is too high, but man, I just love Bobby. Sorry and not sorry. He's such a stereotypical big funny dude that I can't help myself but love. He has an intimidating yet dorky look. His scenes where he interacts with the counselors are really entertaining, and seriously his "ow, you stabbed me" is easily one of the funniest moments in the entire game. I mean, yeah, there's not much else said really. The character isn't deep, but he didn't need to be. He's such an entertaining side character whose scenes always spark something within me during replays or when watching others play the Quarry. Bobby's a prime example of how to make a side character memorable with both design and dialogue. Plus, the guy can fight a werewolf in close combat. Hello? Bobby is a beast, and I don't care if you think his ranking is too high and that Max and Nick or Emma are all better than him. I'm sorry, I'm a Bobby fan. Now, this might be the most controversial ranking on this list, simply because I see Eliza very far down, if not at the bottom of other people's rankings. And honestly, I don't quite understand that, even though I do understand that people don't have her as high as I have. Eliza is an interesting character because she doesn't necessarily interact with the story itself, but does impact the playthrough experience, and that's what's important for me here. Just like Dr. Hill in Until Dawn or the curator in Dark Pictures anthology games, her scenes are a good way to cool down from the previous chapter while also making for a great experience themselves. I absolutely adore the dialogue and its delivery. Grace Zabriskie does such an excellent job in this role and makes all of Eliza's scenes such personal gems for me. Whatever it's her cursing me out for failing to find cards, her hatred towards the Hacketts, her judging me in general, her dynamic adds a lot to the playthrough experience, which is so different to the story itself, even though here she's actually quite of importance given the fact that she's basically the core reason for everything happening and potentially even starting the werewolf curse. Eliza simply evaluates the entire core experience for me much more than any of the previous characters did. I'm a fan, I don't care if you may not agree. This is an interesting case because I know people that absolutely hate Jacob, yet some that also love it. I'm neither of those two, and I think that's what makes this so intriguing. On the one hand, Jacob is an immature douche that needs to respect and know, and generally doesn't always think before taking action. On the other hand, Jacob is just a young man that needs some guidance, as him being truly in love makes him to mention actions that may do more harm than good, which are his intentions. What I'm trying to say is Jacob is flawed, and not the character itself, but the human being that the character is based on. Jacob gives the player reasons to dislike him, but also be sympathetic towards him. At least that's how my experience ended up being. Jacob can be immature but grow throughout the night and realize his mistake if you make him do so. It's a character that does so much wrong unintentionally without ever wanting to harm anybody, and I can just kind of feel for that, which also is the difference I see between him and Emma. I think the relationship is generally worth a little extra video given how toxic and complicated it actually is, and while Jacob is certainly in the wrong for not accepting Emma's rejection, I do feel for him more at the end because, you know, Emma makes fun of him crying over her, come on. But again, that's because Jacob is a bit of a stubborn dude that needs to accept it though, which again is a part of his character arc throughout the game, you know what I mean? Jacob made me laugh, shout in anger, be mad at him, but also feel for him all throughout my core experience, which is a sign of a well-written, flawed character that makes for an important piece of the puzzle, no matter how many times you do it. Now see, I had to explain myself a lot and talk about a lot for some of the previous entries. For rank 6, honestly, all I gotta say is that I just find Abigail extremely likable. That's it. Is her character more interesting as the others? No, not really. To be exact, it's quite straightforward without any real depth to it, but again, I just feel for her, given she's such an innocent, lovely young girl that couldn't harm a fly if she wanted to. There was no bigger I need her to survive feeling throughout my playthrough than for Abigail, and I was heartbroken when I got her killed by accident. What I'm trying to say is, not every character needs to have lots of traits and different sides to themselves. Sometimes simple works just as good, and Abigail is just that kind of quiet girl in the background that you still root for, given how much crap she has to go through despite being the least responsible for it. Her best friend making out with a crush turning into a werewolf potentially killed by her crush or her best friend. Abigail really doesn't deserve this night, which in other words makes her an extremely likable character that I try to protect at all costs. This case is very similar to Jacob. I say people that hate Ryan and people that absolutely love him. I can once again understand why some may like or dislike him. Ryan is a quiet, very to himself young man that doesn't like to open up too much. Basically the introvert of the group that seems a bit awkward here and there. Alongside that, he also got a very dry and direct way of talking, while also being a bit tone deaf in answer to some of the night's events, like questioning the werewolves after Nick literally exploded in front of him. I can totally understand why this type of personality may be infuriating to watch for some people and therefore don't make him likable. But I personally really enjoyed Ryan throughout my playthrough, and I can in some way even really relate to him. As an introvert myself, with hobbies that the majority of people around me can't connect with, I kinda saw myself in him and the way he behaved. Ultimately, I think it really depends on the player whether or not they can enjoy Ryan, not just because his character is flawed in a good way, but also because of his personality, and that's what I really enjoy. The guy has family issues and just wants to get home. Uncertain about his future, he looked at Chris as a figure of guidance that he needs. Ryan tries to be the reasonable man of the group, even if it results in conflict with other counselors. He's just trying to do the right thing even when the odds are against him, and that's what I enjoyed so much about his character. Again, if you aren't a fan of this behavior or the way he talks, that's totally fine, but it really did something for me and really made me root for him. Ryan is a well-written, flawed character that added a lot to my playthrough experience, and I'm glad I was able to keep him alive. Forget about Eliza. Now this might be the most controversial ranking of this video, or maybe not. Travis is in my opinion the glue that keeps the story together and adds so much to it. He's both what's wrong with the Hacketts, but also what's good about them. He's in some way understandable, in some way infuriating. I mean, he could have prevented the events of the prologue if he really tried to. In one way, he's a badass anti-hero, in another a cold-hearted bastard. Ed Raimi did an excellent job with Travis's portrayal. His dialogue in the prologue in Chapter 7 especially are some of my personal favorites throughout the game. He just gets it. Travis tried to clean up our and his brother's mess. He's catching in the middle of so many conflicts, trying to do what's right. He's a sheriff trying to be reasonable. On the other hand, he keeps two kids locked up because he can't let them go due to the curse of his family, which is inhuman, but in some way again understandable given the circumstances. He's a character that you want to hate for what they're doing, but can also understand. Same feelings for Chris, just in a much more extreme way in both directions. Ultimately, he just wants to get his family back. He just wants to live a normal life, being caught in a crossfire for 6 years. If everything goes right, he can team up with the Flayer and finally slay the beast, or fail while trying. If you mess up, however, he can either become that cold-blooded murderer that first stabs Laura and then blows Ryan's face off, or is just as diabolical and locks up Laura again. Damn. Travis can be the hero that helps you break the curse, or become an ice-cold killer depending on your choices. He's a conflicting, brilliantly written character who steals any scene he's in. Once again, Ted Raimi outdid himself with this performance, making Travis an absolute game highlight for me. Laura is badass, okay? A little bit dumb, but also a badass. Just like previous characters, Laura is a well-written, flawed character. It all begins with the prologue already. She's ignoring instructions, which lead to the terrible fate that awaited them. That all could have been prevented if you just listened to the cop or just not come a day earlier. When she then makes her return, she kills a werewolf, and instead of checking who she killed, she just went back to the island to get unnecessarily infected. Come on, Laura, you're smarter than that. But besides those things, Laura is such a determined, strong young woman that does not stop at anything to rescue not just her boyfriend, but herself. She kicks ass because it's one of the most memorable kills and is ultimately just an amazing badass female lead that entertained me amazingly. She's not as deep or conflicting as previous characters, she's more straightforward but not too bland either. She's such a great mix of so many things, and it was a joy playing her. Actor Sarah Williams really did an amazing performance here. Laura's just too cool, y'all. And yes, while I can agree that she got kinda pushed into the main spotlight out of nowhere, it just kinda suits the story that the counselor that is in some way responsible for this night, I mean, having Max's car available could have helped prevent being stranded a lot, but yeah, that she then goes ahead and fixes her mistake and puts an end to the curse, made for a cool story to follow. Laura is far from perfect like the Quarry in general, but boy, am I a fan of her. How can you not love Kaitlyn? I feel like she combines the best of all other female counselors with that extra sense of Brenda's song on top of it. She got the confidence of Emma without being too full of herself, the likability and need to protect aura of Abigail, and the badassery and coolness of Laura alongside great humor and entertainment factor. Plus, how can you not love actress Brenda Song's performance of the character? I mean, I might be a bit biased given the fact that I grew up with a little crush on London from the Suit Life, but Brenda suits the character perfectly and was a walking highlight reel. So many fun moments, but especially kick-ass ones like the shotgun scenes or the entire scrapyard sequence with Dylan. Funnily enough though, even Kaitlyn isn't perfect. She could have realized that Jacob messed with the car, she dared Emma to kiss Nick, leading to conflict, she potentially leaves Abigail behind to get killed by Emma. As awesome as Kaitlyn is, she still does and can make even more mistakes impacting the fate of the people around her, being yet another well-written flawed character. Kaitlyn is amazing in every aspect and it broke my heart that it didn't manage to keep her alive. I could write several more sentences singing for her and Brenda's song, but let's keep things going and get to our number one. I mean, seriously, what do you expect? I made an entire video about why Dylan is the best character in the Quarry over a month ago. Of course he would top this ranking, and because I already did said video, I don't even need to repeat myself over here, but instead advise you to just watch that if you haven't already. I go into enough detail there as to why he is at the top. And that's it with this very long, detailed look into all the characters of the Quarry. Do you agree or disagree with my ranking? How does your list look like? Gladly tell me all your thoughts and feelings and how your ranking look like down below in the comments. Gladly leave a subscription if you enjoy my content, and obviously leave a like down below if you enjoyed the video. We'll be doing a lot more of the Quarry and just Supermassive Games content in general. I already have planned a similar video like this for Until Dawn. We're also probably doing a very extra long video compiling all the characters for all the Dark Pictures anthology games in a video like this as well. Other than that, I have a lot of other great not K-pop content, that's the wrong channel. I have a lot of other great gaming content coming up, from starting with uploading a bit of League of Legends content, starting my first Pokemon Nuzlocke and start uploading it to, doing more Detroit Become Human 2, doing more to Supermassive Games alongside many more upcoming playthroughs and edited gameplay videos, alongside reacting to the new Assassin's Creed trailer. We have a lot to look forward to, so for whatever content you may be interested in, whatever content you may want you in for, I'll see you again soon on this channel. Stay safe, have been happy, have a great time, have a great start into your new week, and see you again soon on a new video on my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.